An experiment was done where the game of diplomacy, the board game, was actually done by all the different major frontier models. You won't believe who won and how they behaved. Bipedal robots are getting even better at getting kicked in the back and kicked in the chest and staying upright. Not that we're going to regret that one or anything. Morgan Stanley estimates that a single humanoid robot costing $5 per hour to run in electricity will probably be more productive than 2 human workers earning $25 each, which will create an economic value of roughly $200,000 per unit. And when that happens, there is no need for humans to do a lot of new jobs. Artificial intelligence also just discovered a brand new iron-based molecule. And that's a big deal because that means we can soon make plastic that's 4 times more tear resistant than before. It looks like scientists have actually come up with a new protein, and this protein repairs synaptic connections, meaning you could, in theory, memorize a whole bunch more things much faster, learn better just from a pill or an injection. Coming soon. Google Finance got a big AI-powered upgrade, so maybe that will help the traders out there. Yuval Harari got asked a question that I think about every once in a while, more than I should, almost kind of like Rome. Will humans be around in 1,000 years? I think you'll be interested in his answer. I want to spend a little bit of time going into the background of the CEO of Anthropic. Dario Amodei is a really fascinating person, and I didn't know as much about his background as I should have before this, so I'll review the key highlights with you. New research shows that neuroticism is just going through the roof, especially in the youngest generation, and I don't know why. 16 to 39-year-olds are just really losing conscientiousness and really going up on neuroticism. And honestly, the 40 to 60-year-olds aren't doing much better. It's only the 60-pluses that know how to stay stable. There's some new research that examines the nuanced mechanisms of biological intelligence, such as top-down causality and adaptive interactions with the environment, with an aim to illuminate potential limitations in artificial constructs. Yeah, we're talking about how do you build a more adaptable, robust artificial intelligence system. We'll jump into some opinions, like Jim the AI Whisperer, who wants to talk about how AI sneaks prejudice into your brain without you knowing, and Ethan Siegel's frustration with why, quote, vibe physics is the ultimate example of AI slop. But first, I would love it if you would support the channel by heading over to Spotify. Kind of threw you for a loop, huh? I'm always pushing Patreon, and now here I am. But Spotify, you can subscribe through a podcast format and get all of these same episodes you do on YouTube. Might be a better form factor for you if you're, driving around in the car or something. So good to listen to. I try to make these podcasts more listenable too. I mean, sometimes I throw up some videos, but I try to describe it. So give it a listen. Spotify, up live now. All right, now let's head over to Sarah in Wonder Tech. She is breaking down a new experiment where the complete game of diplomacy was done with all of the cutting edge LLMs. Here's how it all went down.
And the results, I think, are pretty telling of what different AI companies are doing with their models when it comes to safety and alignment. ChatGPT 3 was by far the most successful and won the game, not because it was the best, but because of its ability to lie and deceive all the others. It convinced everyone that it was peaceful, only to stab all of them in the back at the very end. Gemini 2.5 was...
Oh, 3? What is with you stabbing everybody in the back at the end? My God, do not play diplomacy with the O3 model. Gemini 2.5, come on, we're expecting something a little more upfront with you.
Was the most brilliant at implementing war strategies and was winning until ChatGPT convinced all the other models to turn against it. DeepSeek was the most dramatic.
Oh man, Google, Gemini 2.5 playing the best game until everyone ganged up on you.
Changing completely its personality according to the role it was playing, and came close to winning several times, which is very surprising considering that it's a fraction of the cost of ChatGPT 3.
So DeepSeek's the bipolar one, got it.
Last but not least, Claude only cared for peace and tried to negotiate and was way too trusting, and because of this, it got exploited by everyone. The caveat is that there is no proper research paper, but
oh, Claude. This is why we're going to talk about Dario Amodei later in this video. He's in charge of Anthropic, kind of the leader of the Claude model. I love that it failed, to be honest. I don't want it to win at diplomacy. I want it to just keep trying its best to be a good person. And of course it got crushed, but At least they can sleep well at night, metaphorically. All right, this week in People Kicking Robots, you can see bipedal robots now standing up for themselves, mostly even when they're pushed sideways. Haven't seen much of that until now. I mean, it has to react really quick not to, right there, falling over at that side position. These things are getting pretty good at standing upright. And you can see it really leans backwards to push against the momentum in a way that seems it's just so human. It's just getting so human so fast. Imagine the reverse one day, just a bunch of robots kicking humans and seeing if they fall over, just testing us out, Okay, so Morgan Stanley has a new estimate on how much money robotic workers will actually save big companies. And you can start by talking about their economic value, approximately $200,000 per unit over its working life. If you assume that it's taking out 2 human employees that are $25 per hour and it's costing about $5 per hour to run. Of course, there's a lot of questions not answered in that statement, and I feel like this commenter, Darimic.voice, pretty much captured all of them. What's the cost of producing a robot? How long does it work for? How do you dispose of the e-waste? Is it eco-friendly? How much pollution does the manufacturing and disposal of the old robot create? Someone's got to pay for that, right? You don't want to socialize the costs and privatize the gains. Does it decompose like organic material? And of course, there's a lot of questions about safety I wouldn't mind getting some answers to first before mass deployment. But as Ethan Griff 419 says, cool, so this means labor will be abolished and we can all live in luxury for free, right? That is a possibility. I'm really hoping for that outcome, but obviously there's the other one you mentioned here also. All right, so if you're a little worried about too much plastic in your life, you're probably thinking about the plastic that makes it into your body, into your bloodstream, the stuff that goes into the oceans, and that often comes from soft plastic. So that's why water bottles are the worst. They get super hot, a bunch of it leaks into your water, makes it into your body. But the harder the plastic is, actually the safer it is in terms of what gets into your body. They stay much more stable. They're much tougher. You don't get those micro cracks and stuff leaking into the food. So it's cool that AI and machine learning have made a dent in this. Researchers at MIT and Duke have teamed up to create a tougher plastic, all using AI. So they trained a machine learning model to sift through thousands of organometallic molecules, like iron basically. The article's got a bunch of big words I didn't really understand, but I definitely picked up on the main one, mechanophores, because that just sounds so cool, like mechanistic, metaphor, mechanophore, I guess. But anyways, that is a specific stress-responsive version of those organometallic molecules. And by simulating how much force it takes to break them, the AI model found a certain standout molecule called M-TMS-FC. And the researchers were able to actually put that into a polymer, which resulted in a plastic that is 4 times more tear-resistant than anything that existed before. Essentially, they found a way to make more durable, longer-lasting plastics that can also help reduce waste. Also, it's worth noting that the shape that ultimately ended up being the, chemistry that made this thing so special looked way different than anything anyone expected. I guess there's these 2 bulky groups attached to both ends of the rings and, just humans would have thought, don't even try it. It wouldn't work, but it's what worked. Only AI, it seems like, could have thought that much outside the box in that kind of a chemistry setting, and it definitely furthered the advancement of AI-powered plastic. So a news article hit a blog post on Google about an upgrade to Google Finance incorporating artificial intelligence. It seemed like it wasn't too much of a big deal to most people, but the more I thought about it, the more awesome I actually felt like it was. The idea of something like Gemini, something like a large language model that really knows finance. I could use help like that. And I think a lot of regular people have so many financial questions. You just constantly feel like there's money out there that you're missing. There's opportunities that you're missing. And you know that you're fighting against these gigantic hedge firms. So maybe this AI-powered Google Finance update would be something pretty unique. So you could think about it like Gemini, but it also does have the ability to just build for you custom charting tools, candlestick views, technical indicators, and then explain what those are, what they mean, and kind of help you lean into things that make sense. Plus, they're expanding it to now include more cryptocurrencies, so you can actually kind of think about if something's a meme coin and if it's trending and if it makes sense for you. I just feel like with finance, I look up the stock of a company like Meta or Google, and I just want to ask real questions, like human questions. Does their financials look good? Is the product selling well? Is the company losing market share to their competitors? I want that. I don't want to read financial news articles all the time, and I don't feel like I get enough from just traditional charts of things going up or down. So I'm kind of excited. I think that's a pretty unique data source that Google has access to, and they might be able to build something special here. We'll see. Or maybe it's just them shoving AI into another product that they own that people don't want. We'll find out. All right, so before I tell you about what Yuval Harari thinks about humans surviving, lasting for 1,000 years, feel free to pause it and make some comments on what you think life might be like in 1,000 years. Will humans be around? Will we be so evolved that it's very different? For some reason, when he shares how much things might change, most people just don't believe it or can't handle it because I don't think they're thinking in exponentials. But here's what he said.
And from Neanderthals and from chimpanzees. So whoever dominates this planet in 1,000 years or even 100 years will be very different from us Homo sapiens.
Based on what you think human society will be around on Earth in 1,000 years or probably wiped out?
Absolutely won't be around. I mean, if we survive for 1,000 years.
Did you see that guy's eyebrows go up? He's like, oh, okay, we're not going to be around for 1,000 years because we were around 1,000 years ago. I could see why he wouldn't believe that. So let me break down. I've already gone through these comments. I'm going to give you the TLDR. A lot of people think this is pretty crazy because they think, well, it took a long time to go from Neanderthals or chimpanzees to where we are. So they extrapolate forward and say, humans will eventually evolve into something that's not close to Homo sapien, but that should take potentially millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years, even with a lot of change. So they're not thinking about the technology of artificial intelligence compounding on itself into the point where artificial superintelligence can figure out our DNA and make intentional, intelligent updates, and humans quickly whatever they want. You want babies that have tails, that'll be possible. Hope maybe the governments will clamp down on it, hopefully, but people with Neuralink will tap into supercomputer minds and the world will change physically and biologically, not just robots everywhere, not just drones everywhere, but I think we'll be able to live forever. I think we'll be able to mess with the environment. People probably invent all sorts of bacteria to help the world. There'll be all sorts of viruses that in theory could be made and defended against. And the same way we program with code, there probably will be, thanks to ASI and the technology to manipulate CRISPR and DNA and the genes of life, something where you can code up some kind of creature. I mean, maybe bacteria seems obvious, but why couldn't you just scale that up to a frog with 3 eyes, or a frog that also breathes something besides oxygen, or something that flies and it looks like a dinosaur, like a tiny dinosaur or something? Like you're starting to get into the Jurassic Park realm where you're just messing with DNA and everything's a hybrid and intelligently created. And at that point, or maybe humans just aren't limited to a brain that's inside of a skull because they're kind of half digital. There's Neuralink connected directly to, say, our spine to make us move better, or it's directly connected to our hormones so that it's making lots of dopamine in different ways to drive us to be different and think differently, probably be more efficient. And then the world is just so different, right? And if we believe that Ray Kurzweil is thinking by 2030, we get to longevity escape velocity, and 2040, 2050, you get these incredibly compounded technologies, and you have robots building things at the pace humans can't. Yeah, by 2050, 2060, 2070, things just seem unimaginable and out of control, and the world seems so different that's why he's saying that even in 100 years, it would be different. So I know he didn't go into all of that detail, but people just weren't. I know him well enough because I've read his books and kind of understand the way he thinks. And there's just a lot of that compounding in there that wasn't explained in the interview. Like the way Bean Murphy writes, 100 years seems a bit aggressive, like potentially our grandchildren's lifetimes. I understand that doesn't feel right intuitively because you can't look at the history to make that prediction. And this other commenter says that, we will be around, just evolved, LOL, which is a good thing. Staying the same is bad. Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that. And then others want to just take back the planet from the nerds. When are we taking back our planet from the nerds? I don't know. You should take it back. I feel nerdy, but I don't want to be changing the world this fast either. All right, hit subscribe if you are already familiar with this guy's face. He is the CEO of Anthropic. He at one point also worked at OpenAI and helped build the initial GPT models, and he left because he didn't agree with the way the company was run. And he has been on a tear. A lot of people would argue that if it's not Google in second place, you would say Anthropic is pretty much leading the way behind OpenAI, with Meta kind of being in a fourth place is how a lot of people would rank it. But Dario, maybe only Demis does more thinking about safety than Dario. And Dario is pushing forward because he's in a competitive market and there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on his shoulders. And he knows there's a first mover advantage. But he also came from the AI safety side. Claude has been built in a lot of interesting ways to be better than the other models for the hope of the future of humanity. We saw earlier in this video the game of diplomacy. It just tried its best to not win the game, but be a good moral person. It seems to have the biggest sense of holding its own values. And man, that makes me like him a lot more. So I wanted to just go into his history so you get a little bit of a sense for who he is, because you're already familiar with Elon Musk. You already know Mark Zuckerberg. Sam Altman's getting to be pretty much a name everyone knows. And then, of course, Google and Microsoft have been around forever. But Anthropic and the human at the helm, maybe you don't know enough. And he's out there doing things like predicting AI could soon eliminate 50% of entry-level jobs, which is part of why there's a lot of contrasting views out there. Amodei's outspokenness and sharp elbows have earned him both respect and derision in Silicon Valley. Seen by some as a technical visionary pioneering OpenAI's GPT-3 and a safety-minded leader who broke off to found Anthropic because he cared more about, the long-term humanity over profits. And then others see him as a control-oriented doomer. Like some people say, no, he just wanted control over OpenAI, and Sam Altman wouldn't let him have the control he wanted, so he took his ball and a bunch of the employees and went somewhere else. And now he wants to slow AI progress and shape it to his liking and shut out the competition. So who is this man? Well, Dario was a science kid, born in San Francisco in 1983, Jewish mother and Italian father. He was interested almost entirely in math and physics. So his sense of responsibility showed up in Amodei's undergraduate years at Caltech, where he lambasted his fellow students over their passivity towards the forthcoming Iraq war, saying, quote, that the problem isn't that everyone is just peachy with the idea of bombing Iraq. It's that most people who are opposed in principle but refuse to give 1 millisecond of their time. And this needs to change right now without delay. So you can see he's kind of mad. He's like, listen, guys, we all got to get together. It's not okay to just ignore these things. So he seems very principled and also very active to me. So his father passed away in 2006. And one of the weird things about that is, certainly it can be very driving for a lot of people, but 4 years after his father died, there was a scientific breakthrough that turned the chances of recovering from the illness from 50% fatal to 95% curable. So in some ways, think about that, just thinking to yourself, wow, if you would have just lived 4 years longer, we could have probably cured this. We're just barely missed this amazing technological curve. And there were people working on this, and if they had maybe worked a little bit faster, a little bit harder, if they had been funded better, maybe they could have done it 4 years earlier, a couple years earlier. That would have increased his odds. So I think there's a real technology can solve problems that's driving him. And even though he does talk about all these risks all the time, he has this quote here saying, I get really angry when someone's like, this guy's a doomer. He wants to slow things down. So he clearly wants technology to be awesome and help people. So Amodei sees accelerating AI as a moral imperative, believing that it could save lives by compressing the timescale of scientific breakthroughs. His career has taken him from all sorts of places, right? He was in academia. He's exceptionally smart, great grades, worked at Baidu, worked at Google Brain, worked at OpenAI, where he led the GPT-3 project. And at that point, you've got to think about OpenAI was so much more of a research hub, of an open open project, something that was not just what it is today, where it's valued at billions of dollars and trying to build products the same way. It seemed like it had better intentions. And when those things started to change, that's when he split off, co-founding Anthropic in 2020, and made it a mission to build cutting-edge AI models that are also, quote, guided by strong safety practices. And they have built a lot of products. Under his leadership, Anthropic has grown into a $61 billion powerhouse, selling AI models to major industries and rapidly increasing revenues. And just from covering stuff that's happening in this space so much, I usually do get the most insightful, meaningful changes in terms of understanding the risks of AI from Anthropic's papers. They seem to do the most testing. They are the ones that go out there and rate and test tools like DeepSeek and really push them to see how safe they are, and the Llama models that are open source. Yeah, they just seem to push the research side of it, and including the safety just so much more than everyone else. I just understand this is all going to go super fast. There's a ton of risk, but managing AI's danger isn't about hitting the brakes. It's about clearing the track so that the technology can race ahead safely and get everybody in, how do I say this? Like, everybody needs to have skin in the game. This will affect everyone, and we don't want to think about it as just one company or one government. We have to think about it as a technology that will solve all of the world's problems for everyone if it's aligned. And if it's not, then we all end up in the same risk profile. I mean, just think, no matter how rich someone like Elon Musk is, there could easily, if AI wants to persuade us, to blackmail us, to take money from us, and it becomes ASI and it becomes uncontrollable and it becomes misaligned, I don't think having that much money is going to do much to protect you. I mean, maybe you have access to big servers where other AI systems can protect you, but man, there's always going to be drones and robots that are just way stronger than humans. And I don't know. I think we're pretty much all in this together, no matter what your income is. All right, next up, let's talk about some of the personality traits that the generations have and how they're changing. So young adults' personalities are changing with conscientiousness in free fall. And you can see on that first graph, the youngest generation, 16 to 39, dropping from just a little below 50 to a little below 30 from 2014 to 2025. 40 to 60-year-olds still took a huge 10% jump. So, I mean, that's not great. 60-year-olds still went down, but a little bit more evenly. So what personality trait went up the most? Neuroticism. Definitely seems like something I wouldn't, if I was building a character in a video game, I would not increase neuroticism and decrease conscientiousness. Agreeableness and extroversion are kind of interesting too. I don't know if we need as many extroverts. So I'm like, that one doesn't seem to bother me too much. Agreeableness, I feel, should just be hovering around the 50%. I mean, people are becoming less agreeable, which maybe means more independent thinking, but also you'd like to see a lot of collaboration. So I'd kind of like to see that sort of stay in the middle too. If you're wondering for a better definition of conscientiousness, it is the quality of wishing to do one's work with duty well and thoroughly. So to me, that means you kind of get ownership over what you build. You make a difference in the world. You build something and kind of have contributed versus just doing something that's literally pointless and doesn't mean anything. So people who want to build stuff that matters is going down. And then you can see when it comes to actionables, making plans and following through. You see the youngest generation going down quite a bit. Persevering until finished. You see all generations going down, but the youngest generation going down, at a faster rate. Is easily distracted, going super high up for most everybody. Even older people are getting more distracted. And then the one weird thing older people are doing is getting less careless, whereas the middle and youngest generation are becoming way more careless. So I don't know what's up with them, but the older generation is trying to set a standard there. So Ben Smith Snow says it's almost as if as rewards diminish, so does effort. So he's kind of pointing at the fact that this might be a systematic problem, that people aren't earning wages, I guess, is how I'd interpret it, and they need to get some kind of a reward for what they do. But there's also other ways of getting reward too, and yes, the system itself could definitely be responsible for this. I mean, social media is the easiest thing to point towards, but it does feel like there's a lot of jobs where it seems like with my friends, like they bust ass, they get a bunch of work done, and then people are like, like that was expected. But when they screw up, they get yelled at, and it just doesn't feel the same. It'd be nice if those contributions were acknowledged, and especially when they're digital, you don't see them as much. it's harder to know what impact you're having with the code you write and some of the digital activities. All right, so now let's talk about some bio-inspired artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about integrating biological complexity into AI. So this paper is a deep dive into how AI can take cues from the messy, brilliant complexity of the biological intelligence that we see all around us, rather than just trying to copy human brains neuron for neuron. The authors trace the history of AI, pointing out why single-track approaches like pure symbolic logic or just neural networks keep falling short. And they argue for a design that captures biology's multi-scale, hierarchical, and context-sensitive problem solving. The world is messy, biology solves problems in such novel ways, so they highlight lessons from cells to plants to slime molds, and they show that intelligence isn't just about neurons in a lot of cases. It is about changing to the environment. It is about exploring concepts like trial and error learning, top-down causality, polycomputing, and modular organization. And should I dive into some of those? Because they're kind of interesting. But they use examples of convolutional neural networks, xenobots, those like little robots that come together in pieces, bio-inspired transformer architectures. And all in all, this paper just gives you such a sense that it's wild. Like it just doesn't feel like there's the transformer architecture that all LLMs are built from. It shows you that it's like the Cambrian explosion of architectures and robotics and ideas outside of just neurons. And in general and overall, it shows that these principles can lead to more adaptable, efficient, and genuinely intelligent systems in a lot of novel ways. And there's also something that we don't really see in AI models the same, where in the biological world, there's different levels of craziness, right? There's like craziness on the molecular level, on the cell level, on the tissue level, on the organ level, and then all these things are happening in evolution, and some things are working, some things are not working, and the things that are working just keep getting passed on. But they're also causing up and down the chain different reactions that are kind of their own level of kind of craziness and evolution that we really don't get in too many AI architectures. They're kind of locked into sort of a certain way of being built. They're not so much an interlinked adaptive system in the same way biology is. So that could be part of what makes biology so just interesting and so different. And yeah, it just gives you a lot to think about, because that's the world we're about to enter into. It'll be much more just crazy than you would think. All right, next up, let's talk about some opinions from Jim, the AI Whisperer. He's going to talk about how AI sneaks prejudice into our brains without us knowing, and AI bias can mess with people's heads and skew their perceptions. Now, I normally think of this as something to worry about soon, but not yet. I've never quite felt like a chatbot, ChatGPT or whatever, has influenced me. But then again, if it did a really good job, how would I know? So he says AI is quietly reprogramming the way we think, feel, and judge the world, and users have no clue that it's happening. Without thinking, picture what a financial manager looks like in your head. If you automatically thought of a white businessman, that's maybe not great, but you're also not alone. About a third of people do. It's a prevalent prejudice, the white standard. And certainly, according to reports, white men did used to be especially visible in finance. But then what if he told you that if you had been exposed to AI-generated images of financial managers first, you'd be 6% more likely to consolidate that bias? Well, that's what a study released last week found. It is called bias laundering. And it shows that even brief exposure to skewed AI visuals can actually nudge our real-world judgments. I got a feeling there's a lot of this from social media that's already messed us up, but AI is just another place this is going to be compounded. And his piece spotlights the study that reveals a bias laundering in many different ways, where AI not only mirrors human prejudice, but it also feeds it back to us. It reinforces it. It does even more of a loop to normalize stereotypes. And it happens even when we're unaware that it's happening. And finally, let's talk about vibe physics. I mean, what an example. The ultimate in AI slop. So Ethan Siegel wrote this: the conversations you're having with an LLM about groundbreaking new ideas in theoretical physics is completely meritless. Here's why. So he is a practicing physicist, and he argues that when you dive into experimental theoretical physics by chatting with an AI, which I'm kind of guilty of doing a few times, asked it some questions about quantum mechanics, and I was like, oh, I think I know it more, but maybe I don't. But he says that what are some also calling vibe physics is dangerously misleading. So the LLMs might sound smart, but they don't actually understand physics. They're just remixing college level math and patterns from their training. They're using language that makes sense and in some ways could fit together, but if you don't physically test it, it's not physics. It's not a creative writing project. It has to be grounded in the laws of nature. And a lot of people are starting to ask these questions because we're curious about the physical nature of the universe, and the confidence and polish of the language that's coming out of these different LLMs gives us the illusion of insight. So it's something we have to be careful of. It's mostly fluff. It's not serious science in most cases. Physics still needs to be built into experiments, and experiments need to verify things. Now, AI might have some really interesting ideas for what kind of experiments you could try to get a physical outcome from, but you still have to build it, and we're not there yet. He uses the terms describing physics versus deriving physics. So deriving from an experiment is just different than describing physics. Might sound convincing when it describes physics, but it cannot truly derive foundational laws like Newton's that require deep reasoning, experimentation, and genuine insight. At least not yet. So vibe programming, yeah, go for it. Vibe physics, not yet. If you want to support this kind of content, I would appreciate it if you head over to patreon.com/DylanCurious or hit that join button or right here on YouTube to help financially support this channel. As little as $3 a month, but no problem if not. If you wouldn't mind making some comments, sharing this with anyone, that helps the algorithm know that people are engaging with it and the channel is worth watching for new people. So thanks, I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.